Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Mindy Mandell, and this is the second video in a read-along series on Plato's Parmenides. Throughout this series, I am using the Loeb Classical Library, and the translator is Harold North Fowler. And as always, there is a link in the description box for a PDF version of this text. So today, we're going to be looking at the first hypothesis. But first, we're going to do a little bit of a lead-in into it. And so where this ended off last week was that Parmenides was giving young Socrates some advice. Remember, here we have a young Socrates who has not yet mastered philosophy. And so Parmenides was giving him some advice, and we ended with some warnings that he gave. And Socrates said, "I agree with you, Parmenides, for what you say is very much to my mind." And this is where we pick it up today. "But on the other hand," said Parmenides, "if anyone, with his mind fixed on all these objections and others like them, denies the existence of ideas of things and does not assume an idea under which each individual thing is classed, he will be quite at a loss, since he denies that the idea of each thing is always the same. And in this way, he will utterly destroy the power of carrying on discussion." And you seem to have been well aware of this. "Quite true," he said. A few things I want to point out here, that ideas of things. Here, this is idea in the higher sense, the eidos. This is not just concepts. Okay, so we're talking about absolute realities. And he's saying that if you don't recognize, if you deny the existence of absolute realities and you don't see them as being the head of a series, if you do not assume an idea under which each individual thing is classed, so each has a series. If you studied Proclus, this is very consistent with Proclus as well. If you don't recognize that, you're going to destroy the power of carrying on discussion. And carrying on discussion in the Greek is actually dialectics. So you don't just destroy the power of carrying on casual conversations, you destroy the power of dialectic. Okay, so that's what he's saying there. "Then what will become of philosophy? To what can you turn if these things are unknown?" "I do not see at all, at least not at present." "No, Socrates," he said, "for you try too soon, before you are properly trained, to define the beautiful, the just, the good, and all the other ideas. You see, I noticed it when I heard you talking yesterday with Aristoteles here. Your impulse towards dialectic is noble and divine, you may be assured of that. But exercise and train yourself while you are still young, in an art which seems to be useless, and is called by most people mere loquacity. Otherwise, the truth will escape you." The reason I highlighted beautiful, just, and good is because as you read more of Plato, and those of you who have read many of his dialogues, you may have noticed that this threesome is put together very often in Plato's dialogues. This is his description of the nature of reality. It is beautiful, it is just, it is good. Not as adjectives, but as nouns. It is those three things. That's the description of the nature of reality. So it's worth looking out for that if you haven't noticed it before. Also, this idea of exercise and train yourself. I'm told that in the Greek that the meaning here is something more like, let me get it right here. You must collect yourself together by exercising more in that way. Must collect yourself together. The idea of collecting yourself comes up in other dialogues as well, such as the Phaedo. And so that's another thing to look for. Socrates asks, "What then, Parmenides, is the method of training?" "That which you heard Zeno practicing," said he. "However, even when you were speaking to him, I was pleased with you, because you would not discuss the doubtful question in terms of visible objects or in relation to them, but only with reference to what we conceive most entirely by the intellect, and may call ideas." "Yes," he said, That is because I think that in that way it is quite easy to show that things experience likeness or unlikeness or anything else. Quite right, said he. But if you wish to get better training, you must do something more than that. You must consider not only what happens if a particular hypothesis is true, but also what happens if it is not. What do you mean? Take, for instance, he replied, that hypothesis of Zeno's, if the many exist. Okay, so this is the one we're going to look at. If the many exist. If the many exist, you should inquire what will happen to the many themselves in relation to themselves and in relation to the one or any other. But in this case, the one. That would be the opposite of the many, or the contrast, I should say, to the many. So in relation to themselves and to the one. And then you should also consider to the one in relation to itself and to the many. And also what will happen to the one and the many in relation to themselves and to each other if the many do not exist. Okay, now I'm going to pause here for a moment. This is a quick visual to help put together what we just read there. If the many exist, what are the results for the many in relation to themselves and in relation to the one? And then also look at the results for what results for the one in relation to itself and in relation to the many in light of the many existing. And then you do the same if the many do not exist. Okay, so this is a pattern that we are going to see again throughout this dialogue. And so we're going to come back to this. So this one you want to hold on to. You want to make sure you understand this pattern. Okay, and so he takes that and says, picking up from here, and likewise, if you suppose the existence or non-existence of likeness, what will happen to the things supposed and to other things in relation to themselves and to each other under each of the two hypotheses? The same applies to unlikeness and to motion and rest, creation and destruction, and even to being and not being. Okay, so there's a number of terms here that he says you must do dialectic with. So you can start with the many, and of course the one, although he didn't name that here, but that's obviously the first hypothesis will be on the one. But here he's naming the many, likeness, unlikeness, motion and rest. I'll just highlight them together. Creation and destruction. Being and not being. That almost worked. There we go. Okay, so those are a number of dialectics that he's recommending here, and so you may want to take a hand at it yourself. In brief, whatever the subject of your hypothesis, if you suppose that it is or is not, or that it experiences any other affection, you must consider what happens to it and to any other particular things you may choose, and to a greater number, and to all in the same way. And you must consider other things in relation to themselves and to anything else you may choose in any instance, whether you suppose that the subject of your hypothesis exists or does not exist, if you are to train yourself completely to see the truth perfectly. Okay, so you can do this dialectic, this one, let me go back to it. Following this basic pattern here, you can do this dialectic with any of the absolute realities. Now, I do have a video on this because Proclus gives this a very significant treatment, and in the video that I did, I believe I looked at his dialectic on providence as the example. And so all of this is laid out in that video, and I will link it at the end of this video. Okay, but that's his recommendation for training yourself in dialectic. Parmenides, Socrates said, it is a stupendous amount of study which you propose, and I do not understand very well. Why do you not yourself frame a hypothesis and discuss it, to make me understand better? That is a great task, Socrates, to impose upon a man of my age. But you, Zeno, said Socrates, why do not you do it for us? Pythagoras said that Zeno answered with a smile. Let us ask it of Parmenides himself, Socrates, for there is a great deal in what he says. And perhaps you do not see how heavy a task you are imposing upon him. If there were more of us, it would not be fair to ask it of him, for it is not suitable for him to speak on such subjects before many, especially at his age. For the many do not know that except by this devious passage through all things, the mind cannot attain to the truth. So I, Parmenides, join Socrates in his request, that I myself may hear the method which I have not heard for a long time. Now you may recall that this is a transmission, that Pythagoras is the person who was actually present and had memorized it. He told the story many times to Antiphon, and now Antiphon is relaying the story to Cephalus, which is what we're reading here. Antiphon said that Pythagoras told him that when Zeno said this, he himself and Antisthenes and the rest begged Parmenides to show his meaning by an example and not to refuse. And Parmenides said, I must perforce do as you ask. And yet I feel very much like the horse in the poem of Ibycus, an old race horse who was entered for a chariot race and was trembling with fear of what was before him, because he knew it by experience. Ibycus says he is compelled to fall in love against his will in his old age, and he compares himself to the horse. So I am filled with terror when I remember through what a fearful ocean of words I must swim, old man that I am. However, I will do it, for I must be obliging, especially since we are, as Zeno says, alone. Well, how shall we begin? What shall be our first hypothesis? Okay, so here's where it begins. Or since you are determined that I must engage in a laborious pastime, shall I begin with myself, taking my own hypothesis and discussing the consequences of the supposition that the one exists or that it does not exist? As a side note here, I did do a video recently on an alternative translation of this. Rather than looking at the one itself, the possibility of looking at the one self and talking about self in the Greek. It's the Greek word auto, and talking about this word not being translated in English translations of any of Plato's dialogues, and actually any of the ancient Greek canon. I'll link, actually maybe since I'm going to link the other dialogue at the end, I'll link this one here. And it may be something that you would be interested in. It is a controversial take, I understand, because it's not the way it's generally translated, but it is something to think about. And actually, I have been working for the last probably 2 years or so on a manuscript on the Parmenides, and it does include self as a translation of the Greek auto, and it also has some other aspects of the dialogue as well. And so what I'm thinking is, rather than bringing those ideas into this translation, since it is a different translation, rather than bringing that in here, I'm going to, for this read-along series, I'm going to just stick to this Loeb translation, to the Harold North Fowler translation. But when I finish this dialogue, then the next thing I'm going to do, taking a little bit of a change of pace from what I have been doing up to now, is I'm going to actually go through my manuscript and I'll present those ideas here, and I'm actually very interested in getting your feedback on it. But for now, I'm going to stick to just this translation, and so I'm not going to talk about self so much in this translation because it's not the way this particular one is translated. And there's still quite a bit to see here. So I think it's actually good to go through this translation first to see what's going on here, and then I'll pull out my manuscript and see if we can go a little bit deeper. Okay, so he suggests that we begin with myself, taking my own hypothesis. I will begin with myself, taking my own hypothesis and discussing the consequences of the supposition that the one exists, or that it does not exist. Zeno says, by all means. Who then, he said, is to answer my questions? Shall we say the youngest? He would be least likely to be over-curious and most likely to say what he thinks. And moreover, his replies would give me a chance to rest. Well, I am ready, Parmenides, to do that, said Aristoteles, for I am the youngest. So you mean me. Ask your questions, and I will answer. And so this is the beginning of the first hypothesis. Well then, said he, if the one exists, the one cannot be many, can it? No, of course not. Then there can be no parts of it, nor can it be a whole. How is that? The part surely is part of a whole. Ah, yes. And what is the whole? Is not a whole that of which no part is wanting? Certainly. Then in both cases the one would consist of parts, being a whole and having parts. Inevitably. Then in both cases the one would be many, not one. True. Yet it must be not many, but one. Yes. Then the one, if it is to be one, will not be a whole and will not have parts. No. And so far, he has taken away, if he's saying if one exists, then what follows is, first of all, it cannot be many, it cannot be a whole, and it can have no parts. Okay, I'll just take it from here. Okay, it can't be many, it can't have parts, it can't be a whole. And he's going to continue building, and we're going to see how each thing that he has taken away then leads into the next thing to be taken away, how there is a connection, there's a logic to it. So this is the logos. And if it has no parts, it can have no beginning or middle or end, for those would be parts of it. Quite right. Beginning and end are, however, the limits of everything. Of course. Then the one, if it has neither beginning nor end, is unlimited. Yes, it is unlimited. And it is without form, for it partakes neither of the round nor of the straight. How so? Well, the round, of course, is that of which the extremes are everywhere equally distant from the center. Yes. And the straight, again, is that of which the middle is in the nearest line between the two extremes. It is. Then the one would have parts, and would be many, whether it partook of straight or of round form. Certainly. Then it is neither straight nor round, since it has no parts. Right. So before we go on, let's make sure we're collecting all of the terms that he's bringing in. So no beginning, middle, or end. It also has no limit. And it also has no shape. Okay, we'll take the word form. Some translations call it shape. Here it's called form. Okay, so if it has no parts, then it can have no beginning, middle, or end. And by the way, this can be taken in every way, which you can talk about a beginning, middle, or an end. You can talk about in terms of time. Like this video you started it at a certain time, and when it finishes, there's a certain time. So you can talk about the beginning, middle, and end in terms of time. You can also talk, for example, in terms of space. You can talk about a thing having a beginning, middle, and end. A book, for example. Maybe you can use the video maybe that way, but maybe a book is a better example, that it has a beginning, middle, and end. You can also talk about distance. If you were to drive from wherever you are now to your favorite restaurant, or if you're in your favorite restaurant, from there to home, there's a beginning of your journey and an end in a middle, right in the center. Okay, so in all these various ways, you can talk about beginning, middle, and end. But that's all within the realms of time and space. Outside the realms of time and space, there as well, you can talk about a beginning, middle, and end. The word for beginning in Greek is arche, which is also the word that is used for source or principle, such as when we talk in metaphysics of the first principles. And so that has a metaphysical meaning, obviously, as well as its casual meaning in this realm of time and space. An end also has a metaphysical meaning. The Greek word is telete, which is also a perfection or a completion. And so when we talk about the triads in metaphysics of abiding, proceeding, and reverting, the end always reverts back to its cause. It turns back to know itself. That's the intellectual principle that turns back to know its cause and thus know itself. And so even outside the realms of time and space, there is this circular motion. The Greek word is ousia, this circular motion of knowing itself. And what he's saying here, by taking away beginning, middle, and end in any sense, he's saying that this one of the first hypothesis does not even participate in this process of the absolute realities. Okay, so he's taken all that away from it. He's also taken away any kind of limit whatsoever. And he's taken away then any form or shape. Moreover, he goes on, being of such a nature, it cannot be anywhere, for it cannot be either in anything else or in itself. How is that? If it were in something else, it would be encircled by that in which it would be, and it would be touched in many places by many parts of it. But that which is one and without parts, and does not partake of the circular nature, ousia, cannot be touched by a circle in many places. No, it cannot. But furthermore, being in itself, it would also be surrounding with itself, not other than itself, if it were in itself. For nothing can be in anything which does not surround it. No, it cannot. Then that which surrounds would be other than that which is surrounded. For a whole cannot be both active and passive in the same action. And thus one would no longer be one, but two. True. Then the one is not anywhere, neither in itself nor in something else. No, it is not. Okay, so that two would follow from having no parts. It cannot be in itself, because then that which is within and that which is the container would be two different things. This being the case, see whether it can be either at rest or in motion. So again, we're going to see this building. And I should have highlighted here. Sorry, in itself and in another. Okay, so we're collecting a nice list of terms here, and we can add to it. It's not in itself, and it's not in something else. At the end, I will give you a nice list that you can take a screenshot of if you want, or just take your own notes. It's important to just keep track of all of these different terms and to see the connection, how they flow one to the next, because that's following the reasoning of the argument. And it has a very tight reasoning that's really very satisfying. Okay, so now we're going to build on this here. So it's not, so we don't have that many, so we can go back and review. So it's not many, Therefore, it has no parts. Therefore, it can't be a whole, because a whole is that is not missing any parts. If it has no parts, it can't have a beginning, middle, or end. It therefore has no limitation on it whatsoever, and therefore it has no form. He then adds to it that it's neither in itself nor in something else. And now we're going to see how it also would follow that it can neither be at rest nor in motion. If it is in motion, it would be either moving in place or changing, for those are the only kinds of motion. Yes. But the one, if changing to something other than itself, cannot any longer be one. No, it cannot. Then it is not in motion by the method of change. Apparently not. But by moving in place? Perhaps. But if the one moved in place, it would either revolve in the same spot or pass from one place to another. Yes, it must do so. And that which revolves must rest upon a center and have other parts which turn about the center. But what possible way is there for that which has no center and no parts to revolve upon a center? Well, there is none. But does it change its place by coming into one place at one time and another at another and move in that way? Yes, if it moves at all. Did we not find that it could not be in anything? Ah, yes, we said that. And it is not still more impossible. And is it not still more impossible for it to come into anything? I do not understand why. If anything comes into anything, it must be not yet in it, while it is still coming in, nor still entirely outside of it if it is already coming in. Must it not? It must. Now, if anything goes through this process, it can be only that which has parts, for a part of it could be already in the other and the rest outside. But that which has no parts cannot by any possibility be entirely either inside nor outside of anything at the same time. True. But is it not still more impossible for that which has no parts and is not a whole to come into anything, since it comes in neither in parts nor as a whole? Clearly. Then it does not change its place by going anywhere or into anything, nor does it revolve in a circle nor change. Apparently not. Then the one is without any kind of motion. It is motionless. Furthermore, we say it cannot be in anything. We do. Then it could never be in the same. Why is that? Because it would then be in that in which the same is identical. Certainly. So do you notice here he shifted? So first he concludes it must be without any kind of motion, and Aristotle agrees it is motionless. So now if we're talking about things in the physical world, even the absolute realities outside the realms of time and space, if it's not moving, we would say it must be at rest. But now he's got to show that not only is it without motion, but it is also without rest. Right? When we say it is motionless, we think that means it is at rest. But now he's got to show, no, that also is impossible. And so that's what he's doing here. It can never be in the same. Why is that? Because it would then be in that with which the same is identical. Certainly. But we saw that it cannot be either in itself or in anything else. No, it cannot. Then the one is never in the same. Apparently not. But that which is never in the same is neither motionless nor at rest. No, it cannot be so. The one, then, it appears, is neither in motion nor at rest. No, apparently not. Okay, now we're gonna, okay, so motion, in motion, or at rest. We're gonna highlight that, add it to our list, and now let's go on from here. Now he's gonna go on to same and other. And here he's got to show 4 things: that it's not the same with itself, the same with another, other than itself, or other than another. Neither surely can it be the same with another or with itself, nor again other than itself or another. Why not? If it were other than itself, it would be other than one, and would not be one. True. And surely if it were the same with another, it would be that other, and would not be itself. Therefore, in this case also, it would not be that which is, namely one, but other than one. Quite so. Then it will not be the same as another, nor other than itself. So that's the first 2. Those 2 were the easiest, perhaps, to dismiss, so he got those first. Same as another, other than itself. Those 2 easy to dismiss. But it will not be other than another, so long as it is one. For one cannot be other than anything. Only other, and nothing else, can be other than another. Right. Easy way to think of this is that what we're talking about when we talk about the first hypothesis 1 is that which has no comparison to anything else, is not relative to anything else. It cannot be other because that would be a comparison. Then it will not be other by reason of being one, will it? Certainly not. And if not for this reason, not by reason of itself. And if not by reason of itself, not itself. But since itself is not other at all, it will not be other than anything. Right. And yet one will not be the same with itself. So that's the next one. Same with itself. He's got to also show it can't be the same with itself. And you can also probably already anticipate here that if it has no relativity to anything else, then the same logic would apply here as well. Why not? The nature of one is surely not the same as that of the same. Why? Because when a thing becomes the same as anything, it does not thereby become one. But why not? Well, that which becomes the same as many becomes necessarily many, not one. True. But if the one and the same were identical, whenever anything became the same, it would always become one. And when it became one, the same. Certainly. Then if the one is the same with itself, it will not be one with itself. And thus, being one, it will not be one. This, however, is impossible. It is therefore impossible for one to be either the other of other or the same with itself. So if that was a little confusing, let me just run some examples past you here. So if something is the same as my phone, then it is a phone. If it is the same as this microphone, then it is a microphone. So whenever you're talking about same, it always refers to whatever it is the same as, whatever is the object that you are applying the word same to. But one is always one. It doesn't keep changing into other things. That's what he's saying there. And so he wrapped up for that batch there, those 2 things there. It is therefore impossible for one to be either the other of other or the same with itself. Impossible. And now he's going to take all 4 together. Thus the one cannot be either other or the same to itself or another. Okay, so that's all 4. And once he has taken away same and other, then we'll see this logic going through everything else. Now we're going to move on to like and unlike. And here you can see it's going to be very easy if it can't be same or other. Because when you're talking about the like, you're talking about that which is a bit the same and a bit different, or a bit other. but it's more same than other. And when you're talking about unlike, it's more other than same, but it has that combination. And so if it can be neither same or other, then obviously it can't be any combination of the two. So it can't be like or unlike. But we'll see how he does it here. And again, it will not be like or unlike anything, either itself or another. Why not? Because the like is that which is affected in the same way. Yes. But we saw that the same was of a nature distinct from that of the one. Yes, so we did. But if the one were affected in any way apart from being one, it would be so affected as to be more than one, and that is impossible. Yes. Then the one cannot possibly be affected in the same way as another or as itself. Evidently not. Then it cannot be like another or itself. No, so it appears. Nor can the one be so affected as to be other, for in that case it would be so affected as to be more than one. Yes, it would be more. But that which is affected in a way other than itself or other would be unlike itself or other, if that which is affected in the same way is like. Right. But the one, as it appears, being never affected in a way other than itself or other, is never unlike either itself or other. Evidently not. Then the one will be neither like nor unlike either other or itself. So it seems. Since then it is of such a nature. So again, building, right? If it's of this nature, then this is what follows next. So there's this building throughout. If it is of such a nature, it can be neither equal nor unequal to itself or other. Let me highlight that. So that's the next thing. If it can't be like or unlike, then it can't be a like measure, or actually the same measure, or of a other measure. Why not? If it is equal, it is of the same measures as that to which it is equal. Yes. And if it is greater or less than things with which it is commensurate, it will have more measures than the things which are less, and less, actually fewer measures than the things which are greater. So he used the wrong grammar, I think, intentionally to keep with the language of less. And in the case of things with which it is not commensurate, it will have smaller measures than some and greater measures than others, of course. Is it not impossible for that which does not participate in sameness to have either the same measures or anything else the same? Impossible. Then not having the same measures, it cannot be equal either to itself or to anything else. No, apparently not. But whether it have more measures or less, fewer, sorry, that annoys me, I don't know why. Whether it have more measures or fewer, it will have as many parts as measures, and thus one will be no longer one, but will be as many as are its measures. Right. But if it were of one measure, it would be equal to the measure. But we have seen that it cannot be equal to anything. Yes, so we have. Then it will partake neither of one measure, nor of many, nor a few. Nor will it partake at all of the same, nor will it ever apparently be equal to itself or to anything else, nor will it be greater or less than itself or another. Perfectly true. And so this also removes it even from the eidos, which are the fullest flowering of their series. So the greatest in their series, if you will. Well, does anyone believe that the one can be older or younger or of the same age? Why not? Because if it has the same age as itself, or as anything else, it will partake of equality and likeness of time. Right? So if you take away measure, then you take away age. Older or younger or of the same age. oh yeah, I didn't highlight here, equal and greater or less. Okay, so if it can't have measure, then it cannot have age, because that's a kind of measure, right? If it has the same age as itself, or as anything else, it will partake of equality and likeness of time. And we said the one had no part in likeness or equality. Yes, we said that. And we said also that it does not partake of unlikeness or inequality. Certainly. How then, being of such a nature, can it be either younger or older or of the same age as anything? In no way. Then the one cannot be younger or older or of the same age as anything. No, evidently not. And can the one exist in time at all if it is of such a nature? Must it not, if it exists in time, always be growing older than itself? Okay, so cannot exist in time. Let me highlight that before we go on. Must it not, if it exists in time, always be growing older than itself? It must. And the older is always older than something younger. Certainly. Then that which grows older than itself grows at the same time younger than itself, if it is to have something than which it grows older. What do you mean? This is what I mean. A thing which is different from another does not have to become different from that which is already different, but it must be different from that which is already different. It must have become different from that which has become so. It will have to be different from that which will be so, but from that which is becoming different, it cannot have become. Nor can it be going to be, nor can it already be different. It must become different, and that is all. A very confusing way of saying it, but Aristotle says there's no denying that. Basically, if there's only one and it's growing older, then it can only, that's older is a comparative term. There must be something that is younger, and if there's only the one, it can only be younger. It can only be older than itself, and itself growing younger. And notice that he also uses the various tenses, and that is going to come up again. Past, present, and future tenses, I mean. There's no denying that. But surely the notion older is a difference with respect to the younger and to nothing else. Yes, so it is. But that which is becoming older than itself must at the same time be becoming younger than itself. So it appears. But surely it cannot become either for a longer or a shorter time than itself. It must become and be about and be for an equal time with itself. That also is inevitable. In other words, however much time it's getting older, that same amount of time would also be growing younger. Apparently, then, it is inevitable that everything which exists in time and partakes of time is of the same age as itself and is also at the same time becoming older and younger than itself. I see no escape from that. But the one had nothing to do with such affections. No, it had not. It had nothing to do with time and does not exist in time. No, that is the result of the argument. Well, do not the words was, has become, and was becoming appear to denote participation in past time? Certainly. And will be, will become, and will be made to become in future time? Yes. And is becoming in the present? Certainly. Then if the one has no participation in time whatsoever, it neither has become, nor became, nor was in the past. It has neither become, nor is becoming, nor is it in the present. And it will neither become, nor be made to become, nor will it be in the future. Very true. Can it then partake of being in any other way than in the past, present, or future? Those have all been denied. It cannot. Then the one has no share in being at all. Apparently not. Then the one is not at all. Evidently not. Then it has no being even so as to be one. For if it were one, it would be and would partake of being. But apparently, this one of the first hypothesis, it neither is nor is one. Let me highlight that. It neither is nor is one. So he's taking away both being and even one from this first hypothesis one. Apparently the one neither is nor is one, if this argument is to be trusted. That seems to be true. But can that which does not exist have anything pertaining or belonging to it? Of course not. Then the one has no name, nor is there any description or knowledge or perception or opinion of it. Evidently not. And it is neither named, nor described, nor thought of. And it is neither named, nor described, nor thought of, nor known, nor does any existing thing perceive it. Apparently not. Okay, so this one, the conclusion here is that you cannot know anything about it. You cannot perceive it. You can't have an opinion of it. You certainly cannot have knowledge of it. It has no name. There's no logos, no description of it. It is actually logos in the Greek. We cannot say anything about it at all. And Aristotle, he's been following all along. He says apparently not. But then the question becomes, is it possible that all this is true about the one? So Aristotle, he's been following all along. He's been going along with it, not saying if he agrees or not, just saying, yes, that follows. Yes, I'm following your logic. Is it possible that all this is true? I do not think so. And that's where the first hypothesis ends. Before I say more about it, let's take a look at all of the denials that we just went through here. It cannot be many. It cannot be a whole or part. It cannot have a beginning, middle, or end. It has no limit. It has no shape or form, in this translation. It is neither in itself nor in another. It is neither in motion nor at rest. It is neither same nor other than itself or another, neither like nor unlike itself or another. It cannot be of equal, greater, or less age than another. It cannot be of the same age, older or younger, or less than, not age. It cannot be equal, greater, or less than another, or itself. It can neither be same age, older, or younger than itself, or another. It cannot be in time. It does not even have being. It is not even one. And so Aristotle, he followed all of that. But when it came to the question of, is this possible? He says, I do not think so. And this is what makes it necessary then for Parmenides to go through the structure of the rest of this dialogue, where he's going to go through 8 more hypotheses, looking at first if the one exists, and then looking at if the one does not exist. And so we're going to see that hypotheses 2 through 5 deal with the question of if the one exists. And it roughly follows this pattern, although you'll find that he's coming at the one from a different perspective with each of these hypotheses, and that'll become clear as we go on. But you'll see that the second hypothesis looks at the one in relation to itself. The third hypothesis looks at the one in relation to the many. The fourth hypothesis, the many in relation to themselves in light of the one existing. The fifth hypothesis, the many in relation to the one in the light of the one existing. And then hypotheses 6 through 9 will come down here if the one does not exist. And so that is where we're going from here. Okay, so next week we'll start the second hypothesis. Now this is the longest in this whole dialogue, and I think it's too long for me to do in one video because, I only have 1 week. These are going out once a week. And so I'm going to break it into 2 videos, just the second hypothesis, because it is very long. But we'll get the first half of it next week, and I do hope you'll join me for that. So if you have any questions or comments, please put those below. Please share and like and all that good stuff, and I hope that you'll join me next week. Thank you very much.